If you want to retire from corporate in your 20s or at least 10 years earlier, this is the video for you. In this video, I will share with you exactly what my 17 income streams are and my thought process when it comes to creating each of them with my 2 frameworks, the monetizable identity and the investor personality. Lastly, I will also talk about the biggest needle movers in terms of all my income streams. So let me just list out all the income streams and I will go into much more detail. Here are my 17 income streams. Number 1, YouTube ad revenue, corporate salary, RSU, affiliate marketing, online course sale, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, interest income, dividend income, realized capital gains, merch sale, rent income, designer item flipping, selling my belongings, bank account churning, credit card churning, and cashback reward churning. So at a first glance, it seems like a lot. There are 17 of them in total. But you have to keep in mind that 17 income streams, that is not 17 jobs. Here, I will divide the different income streams into 2 main categories. The first category is my first framework, which is the monetizable identity. So this basically means being able to identify what can you make money with what is part of your identity. So for example, I'm someone who loves money. I was business-minded since a really young age. Even when I was in elementary school, I already had an e-commerce business. So part of my monetizable identity is talking about money and talking about how to make money. So part of my monetizable identity is figuring out how to create income streams and also how to teach how to create income streams, because being a teacher has also been one of my childhood dreams. So specifically, part of my monetizable identity, YouTube ad revenue, definitely part of it, because by creating these videos online on YouTube, this is part of me teaching how to create income streams and how to achieve FIRE, specifically early retirement. Affiliate marketing, also part of it, because it is just a natural transition from creating YouTube videos. And of course, there's also online course sales, again, matches up with my teacher identity. One-on-one coaching, same thing, coaching, teaching, very much along the same line. There's also group coaching, which along the same lines is just the difference between one-to-one to one-to-many. There's also merch sales, which also ties to my YouTube platform. And there's also designer item flipping, which another part of my identity is I enjoy the finer things in life. I like bougie things, and that's why I know a lot about designer goods, and that's why designer good flipping is also part of my income streams. And there's also selling my belongings. And since I have been a really business-minded person since a young age, I'm able to see deals and I'm able to also leverage this eye for good deals to use it to sell my belongings. And sometimes I'm able to make money by selling secondhand things. So this is also part of my income streams. And this is not exactly the same as designer item flipping, because the things that I sell that's part of my belonging, they're not necessarily designer goods and they're kind of in a separate category, but I can still make money from it. So basically 8 of my income streams, 8 out of the 17 income streams, they tie directly to my monetizable identity. And there are also things that are loosely connected to my monetizable identity, such as bank account churning and credit card churning. And since I've always been a very business-minded person and I also, really much enjoy earning money and figuring out how to earn more money, bank account churning, credit card churning definitely ties into that. And there's also my cashback rewards churning along the same lines, because I like to figure out what is the best deal, what is the most effective way and most, optimal way to make money and to get rewarded. That is why this is also loosely tied to my monetizable identity. Of course, there's also interest income and rent income. So along the same lines, because I like to figure out what is the most optimal way to make money, also most passive way to make money, interest income and rent income definitely tie into that. Interest income, totally passive. I just, put my money in a certain, let's say, money market account or a high yield savings account and just earns money passively. And there's also rent income. There's less passive because sometimes you do have to, fix things around the house as a landlord, or, if things break down, you have to, call the repair guy. So there are, some involvement, or let's say the lease ends, you got to find someone to replace your previous renter. So it's not totally passive, but it's still for the most part passive. Now let's talk about my second framework, which is investor personality. So this is basically having a very clear understanding of how you operate as a person. And some of us, we are, super hands-on. We want to know the details. We want to, for example, look at the news every single day. Like that's already part of our daily routine. So in that case, maybe you want to look into more active investing, right? If looking at the news, reading financial statements very frequently, following companies really closely, if that's your thing, maybe you want to do active investing. But if you're someone who, let's say doesn't really like to watch TV or the news or get freaked out by like headlines, and you don't necessarily enjoy watching the stock market every single day, then maybe passive investing is your thing. And of course, this is just like two very surface level things in terms of your investor personality, but this is so important when it comes to investing, because I see so many people, they just dive into any investment strategy that they read about, and then it just doesn't work in their favor because it does not really align with who they are and how they operate. So since I am relatively a risk-averse person and I don't like to necessarily read the news every single day, I like to take a more passive approach and also long-term investing approach, and also focus on dividend investing. So two of my income streams tied directly to my investor personality. There's my dividend income, which again, like dividend investing is relatively stable, and you also get stable passive income from it. So dividend investing is part of it. And there is also my realized capital gains, which since I'm a long-term investor, these realized capital gains, usually they are, from just buy and hold. And sometimes when I feel like the time is right, I then sell and realize my capital gains. And in terms of my realized capital gains, I focus mainly on, of course, dividend stocks and mostly value stocks, less so growth stocks, because that is still a little risky for my own liking. And I also focus on the tech sector since I have worked in tech before and I know more about this industry. So again, tying back to the investor personality, you really have to understand what kind of person you are, what kind of experience you have, and to have your investment strategy be more aligned with who you are as a person instead of just following any method you see online. And now let's talk about what is the biggest needle mover. So in terms of my net worth, since, talking about early retirement, we of course have to think about the FI number and think about the net worth. So in terms of the net worth, my own personal net worth, the biggest needle mover was definitely real estate investment. But you have to keep in mind that you can't just aim for real estate investment when you first start out. You can't really get there without income or without proper knowledge. So let's talk about number two, which is income stream, right? Because you need income in order to invest in anything, especially real estate. So in terms of income stream, the biggest needle mover was definitely course sales and one-on-one coaching. And my online course business and my coaching business, they all started from my YouTube channel. That is where I grew a following. That is where I built a platform. And so it is all interconnected. So right now with my online course, Early Retirement Academy, I make around 20K a month passive income, mostly passive, which it can be completely passive. I've seen a lot of course creators, they put out a course and they don't necessarily interact with the community, or maybe people have to pay a premium to get support. But for me, I really care about my students' experience. So I do open access. There is 3 months of one-on-one access with me. There's also monthly group coaching calls. So everything is honestly like super hands-on. I want to make sure my students get the full support and get what they need from Early Retirement Academy. So here's a quick rundown of the 17 income streams that help me retire from corporate. So far, we've talked about what these 17 income streams are, what my 2 frameworks are, and also my thought process when it comes to creating income streams. I'm going to link my next video up here, but don't click on it yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to retire early. And if you're ready to dive a lot deeper with me, DM me the word FI/RE at cherrytongue.co on Instagram.